Hey, what is up everybody, Blades for here, and today I for you guys another video of Persona 5X. Inside today's video guys, we're going to be going over a full combat guide of P5X itself here, seeing that a lot of you guys are a little bit new to the game, and or a lot of you guys are just now checking out the channel. You want to know exactly what's different about P5X, at least according to the P5 or any of the Persona series. So we're really just going to be going over everything regarding this and exactly how the combat differs, how it plays, and pretty much how you set up everything. And I'm going to try my best to really break it down piece by piece. So if you guys are interested in this, be sure to sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. As always, hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out, and it also helps out the channel, of course, to get into the YouTube algorithm. And if you ever want to, of course, stay up to date, hit that little bell for notifications and decide to jump into the Discord. I've recently been organizing that place a lot more here, getting a lot more of you guys more intertwined inside of that community, which I'll keep you guys updated with anything P5X related, where either it's global, JP, TW, CN, and or KR. But without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So we're gonna go ahead and start off with the overworld type fighting, or at least the combat way of overworld here. The reason I'm starting with this is because for many of us, we're going to start, of course, with the story, and this is going to be more of our overworld type fighting, and that's not really going to be too bad for you, but all in all, it kind of acts just the same. So normally, we're going to go ahead and actually start off at the first palace here, and I'm just going to show you guys exactly how this really does work. Much like the original P5 or just most of the games here, you always will have your overworld type moving, or at least movement. So really with the combat wise, it's always going to be the same. You're kind of just moving around the world, doing whatever you need to do, playing this as if you're playing a normal just Persona game. There's going to be certain places to enter. There's going to be certain places where you can't enter, and you need to do various things to get inside of the combat. Combat wise, to at least initiate a lot of these type fights is kind of just normal. If you are over leveled and highly over leveled like this, you could very well just one shot at least a mob. Though if you are not over leveled and you just need to do some fighting, you very well will just end up going ahead and just running around and getting yourself into a fight. So we're going to try and find us a shadow real fast, in which I really need to see where they are at. I'm actually kind of surprised I haven't seen one, which is there is one. So you'll have two options. Now, just like the original game, of course, you very well can hide, or at least hide around in certain areas, which can get you to jump on some of these shadows. So let's see if there's a place in this room, which actually doesn't seem like there is, unfortunately. But normally you, of course, can get to jump on it as one of your options. The other option, of course, is just straight up battling, in which you can very well just either get ambushed, much like this. You can smack the actual opponent, which if you're not over leveled, does not insta kill, and you get into this battling phase. Now, of course, if you are one of the few who actually decided to be over leveled here, you can kill this guy instantaneously, but normally you're just going to do the normal type get into a fight, where you either do the smack, they either do the smack, and it initiates the fight. As always, if you end up getting hit first, you get ambushed, so they take their turns first, and then if of course you ambush them or you hit them first, you get the first turn as always. Now, much like it, of course, you're going to end up going through here, getting some basic old little EXP, nothing too big when it does come down to the combat. Pretty short and sweet and simple, but of course there is some little gimmicks that come along with it. So as always, if you're over leveled, that's how it looks. You get yourself, of course, any small soul gems and EXP with this, and that's just how it goes. So let's try and find us another person so we can actually start to explain how this goes. Now, I'm probably going to go into at least a instance to actually do this a little bit better, or at least explain this better to you guys. So one of the other actual combat, at least guides that I can give you for this, is just going to be regular instances, or just regular how you're going to be doing most of your fights here. So if we go ahead and take a look into the Velvet Trials area, I'm going to go ahead and set this up in the right way, and we're just going to do the first one. I want to find one with multiple characters so it's actually easier to show everything that we want to really show. And there we go. This is perfect here. So before you get into a fight, as always, when it does come down to the combat here, you will have to make your team. So I put this team together just like something simple, something just random, to be honest, so we can actually just show this. Of course, you put your team together, and at this point in time, your team is going to then be organized in the fight by how much speed they have. Now, this, of course, is going to be according to at least the character themselves and the cards that they wear. So if we go ahead and actually check out at least the character here, and I'm going to check out her stats immediately. Her stats, if we go ahead and look at this, is at 105.5. Now, if we go ahead and check out Florette, and then we check out our Joker, we have 100 speed on Florette, and we have at least, let me go ahead and make sure here, we have 102 speed on our Joker, with us having around, I think it's 101 speed, or no, 106 on our Wonder here. Now, how the combat is set up is based on whoever is faster ends up going first on the speed line, which is up here at the top left. Then of course our Vino is the fastest here, and then of course when added stats in battle are added up, we have Joker going next, Wonder being third, and then Florette being the last, being the slowest. Pretty much all this is just determining how your turn little like kind of rotation is going to go, and that allows you to really get everything set up. Normally you want to have at least your debuffers and your supporters first, then have your DPS near at least the end of the area, so then you're able to really get a lot of those debuffs off, get a lot of those support little buffs off, and just get your buffs off, so then your actual DPS can do majority of type deals. Now when it comes to at least to all the fighting here, you just have everything just like P5 itself. You have your persona side, which is the E button. You have of course your melee, which is spacebar being the sword button. G is going to be your navigator, which just come after a few turns. W being gun, which you can shoot multiple times, but after you run out of bullets, of course, you're out of luck. If of course you have some bullets, you can take down a couple of these little stacks depending on the weaknesses or if you hit crits, so none of that's really different. Now, of course, doing any of these type of actions will take up that action from the character, and it will then go to the next character on the speed line. If you wanted to and you were in a bind, or if you feel like you need to actually guard, both using guard and or an item will take of course a action, so you will have to plan those ahead of time when doing so. But for example, let's go ahead and use our persona here. When we have our persona, of course the character comes with their own hits here. Each one of these skills will end up taking up a little bit of SP, and regarding so they can be a single target skill or an AoE skill. So for example, we can go ahead and do something like this, in which does a single target type damage here, but there are AoE type skills such as like the ones that Joker really does specialize in. Depending of course if you do have a character who actually counters the enemy, or at least has a weakness for the enemy here, this is what ends up happening as well. So for example, we have an AoE first attack from our Joker. Everyone is actually weak to this character, but what he's allowed to do is, thankfully to that weakness, he's actually able to knock down one of these toughness stacks. Once all these toughness stacks are actually fully gone here, you're then able to get yourself a knockdown on all the enemies, which then will end up leading to either an all attack or either a actual baton pass. Now baton passes work a little bit different in this game. You can't really stop them. You do have to kind of change. Like instead of like baton passing and you're like, I don't want to really attack this character, I'm going to use this character a different way by actually making sure they can go a certain way on the turn section. No, it's actually quite different. So for example, let's do this here with at least Shadowless Stab. Use our skill 3, which is a single target hit. We then get the knockdown since there's no more toughness stacks, but now this is our baton pass. We have to, no matter what, or at least one more here, we have to, no matter what, actually use a character of our sort, which in the settings you can make it so you can choose instead of it auto choosing, but you have to use a character that no matter what is going to do a certain function. So for example, usually you want to tie this into weaknesses. So we have Joker here. We're going to go ahead and press 2. He's going to do his baton pass follow-up, in which is a single target attack, knocking down this other enemy. Once you have all the enemies knocked down due to their weakness here, you actually end up getting the all-out attack, which can help you deal a surplus amount of damage depending on the characters you do have in the party, and actually more so for your score actually if you have a ton of elemental characters that go for it. So since we go ahead and do this, you guys can go ahead and see you deal a decent bit of damage based on at least who you have in there and at least how your DPS are looking. Now let's say you didn't kill them, like I didn't kill them, of course it gives the enemy some time to get back up, and at this point in time you're then able, of course, you have to take down their toughness stacks once again and knock them down again in order to get those things back down. You could really strategically do this as well when it does come down to the combat functions for this game, and just go ahead and knock down maybe 1 or 2, and then the last one you can kind of leave up so that you can set up the next round for at least an all-out attack, but it honestly comes down to you. Now with the navigator, luckily it has been for actions. Now we're able to actually go ahead and press G to actually use the navigator here. And what each navigator does is they all will have their own personalized type skills. With Futaba here, she's actually able to reduce the enemy's defense and sometimes she's actually able to actually make it so they're weak to certain actual weaknesses here. So let's say I'm facing one of these dudes who are weak to fire. Well, thankfully to Futaba being my navigator and I wait the action turn time, she's actually able to make them now even stronger weak to fire here. Or if they weren't originally weak to, let's say, since we have at least a curse character here, if they weren't originally weak to curse, she can now do a weakness implant and make them weak to curse if they're just normal to it. This comes with different characters and they are going to be a little bit hard to kind of function. You just have to read mainly the characters and how they do their hits, but all in all it is kind of different. Now there are a few characters that can do a certain thing like Joker can here, and that is going to be different little additives to at least their actual kit here. Now certain kits allow you to do different things. Joker's one of those characters that at a certain point he actually can get an extra turn. With this in mind, with the extra turn here for specifically him, he's actually able to go again and actually deal a ton more damage when you use a certain skill. But that's more into the kit build side, so I'm not really going to talk too highly on that. Let's talk about the highlights here. For many of you guys who do know, this game has ultimates, much like of course Honkai Star Rail and stuff like that, but all of these ultimates are cumulative. So at the end of the day here, once you get this little star at the bottom right to 100%, aka that highlight star, you will then be able to of course use a highlight. Using this highlight will fully deplete that star, but it pretty much does a whole ultimate for you, dealing some decent damage. Once you build this up, you kind of want to make the best use of it, whether it comes down to at least waiting a few turns to use it with deciding on using a buff type highlight, or either just going ahead and using it the second you get it, whether it's a damage or buff, it doesn't really matter. It just depends on how you really want to play it. So for example, we have the highlight, we want to of course just clear this on out or at least deal some high damage. Well, luckily for us, Joker has an AoE highlight who actually does a decent bit of damage, while the other characters has a single target highlight, a single target highlight as well, and another single target highlight. Well, we want to clear the mission right now, or at least clear the dungeon right now. Go ahead and use our AoE highlight, which does a little bit of a special animation real quick, and it immediately gets rid of what's in front of us, or at least gets rid of a lot of things that are in front of us right there. This is something that's fairly useful, and you want to kind of strategically do it because at the end of the day, those are very powerful moves and you really want to make sure that you use them wisely. Now, of course, there is still the knockdown system with a gun. Depending on how this happens here, you will need to of course get the criticals or either get their weakness on it, and that can knock them down as well. So that time, that was kind of our little mess up there, so we weren't able to really do that at that point in time. But all in all, we still got at least to heal off right then and there, which is pretty decent. Now there isn't really too much else to elaborate on, at least the mechanics of this game, besides of course a small few of things here. What I mean by small few is because certain characters actually do bring a different mechanic to P5, or at least P5X, unlike P5. For example, we have at least certain characters that do have form switches, or at least form changes. This isn't something that is not always applicable to every last character, but they are able to be used by certain characters. For example, we have at least Sumire here. Instead of a highlight, she has such a thing called Masquerade, which is pretty much the equivalent of a highlight, but way more powerful. At this point in time, she's actually able to crit with her highlight and does way more damage with that. Or for example, there's different characters like Mesa here who actually form swap. Depending on once you have that actually form swap ready, you can go ahead and press the Alt button, and that makes him go into his different form. Even the same goes with Elise Mont, where we have dual typings, where depending on how many of ice characters are in the team, and or how many wind characters are in the team, allows her to swap forms, but she can also freely do so in the game. But all in all, combat wise, you pretty much know everything that's pretty much the same with P5, with a couple different sprinkles of different type deals. But you guys let me know down below what you think. Do you think that combat is going to be a little bit iffy? Do you think that of course it's not your type of style? At the end of the day, is there anything that you want added to the game? But anyways, that was everything I had for you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. And if you did, smash that like button with your forehead. But see you later.